I never thought I'd hear those words come out of my own mother's mouth. She's stronger and more deserving than you, Amelia. The sentence rang through the silence, cutting through every belief and hope I'd ever held about my family. My mother, the woman I had spent years loving and respecting, stood next to Mark, the man I had loved for 3 years, and said I wasn't good enough, not strong enough to deserve him. I froze. I couldn't move. It happened during my cousin's graduation party. Mark had gone to get us some drinks, and I just wanted to find him to give him a surprise kiss. But instead, I stumbled upon that conversation between him and my mom. It was a moment I could never forget. Amelia's always been the weak one, Mom continued, her voice light, like she was just talking about her favorite dish. You need someone who can push you forward in life, not someone who always leans on others. Neither Mark nor I knew what to say, but when I looked into his eyes I saw it. Hesitation, confusion. He didn't defend me. He didn't laugh off the comment. He just stood there, silent. And in that moment, I felt the deepest kind of pain. That's when it all started, the moment I heard words that felt like blades to the heart. And from there I realized everything I once believed to be solid in my life could come crashing down. Love, family, relationships. None of them were what I thought. Those words echoed in my mind, keeping me awake at night, making it impossible to find a reason to keep fighting. I didn't want to believe what I'd just heard, not from my mother, not from Mark, and definitely not about our love. But then, I started to notice the subtle changes, the signs I couldn't ignore. Mark began mentioning Elizabeth, my sister, in every story. He talked about her accomplishments at work, her dedication to her weight loss journey, and every time he did, it felt like a small cut across my heart. Then one day, everything exploded. I found out he was dating Elizabeth. Yes, exactly that. A moment I couldn't come to terms with. I stood there, watching Mark and my sister in his apartment, on his bed, completely unaware that I was about to walk in. They weren't even surprised when I showed up. They just stood up, their faces void of any shame, like what they were doing was completely normal. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things like in the movies. The rage boiled inside me, but I just walked away, silent, feeling like everything I had was crumbling. When I confronted my mother, the lack of remorse in her eyes was the final blow I couldn't bear. She said Elizabeth deserved him more, because she was strong and had a stable career. She told me I was weak, not capable of making it in life. I couldn't accept that. I couldn't stay in a family that didn't see my worth. But I didn't know what to do. I had loved Mark. I had loved my family. But standing in that kitchen, I knew it was over. And I decided I wouldn't come back. The next day, I couldn't even face my mother. I didn't know why, but thinking about her words lit a fire inside me. Quiet, but burning, and I knew I had to act. I couldn't keep living in a world where I was invisible. Couldn't bear the pity in my family's eyes, as if I was too weak to live my own life. I had loved Mark, truly, but he betrayed me in a way I never saw coming. The image of him and Elizabeth in that room haunted me. The feeling of being discarded, replaced like I was nothing. And my mother, the one I trusted the most, took their side. I couldn't accept that. I couldn't keep living like this, being treated as worthless in my own family. I don't remember exactly what I did. I just know I left the house in silence. A cold numbness took over my body, but I didn't regret it. I drove all night, with no destination, no plan, just the urge to escape and start over. Not because I was scared, but because I needed to find myself again. Chicago. That's where I ended up. The city, full of life and bright lights, felt like the place where I might find a new chance. I didn't have much money, just an old car and a few belongings. That was all I had, after 3 years of security with Mark and my family. All I needed now was a new beginning. I didn't need anyone's forgiveness. I didn't need their validation. I just needed to live for myself. On my first day in Chicago, I found a small room in a run-down boarding house. It wasn't pretty, it wasn't comfortable, but it was enough for me to rest and start thinking about my next steps. Everything was unfamiliar, but I wasn't scared. Maybe I had gotten used to the loneliness, but this time, it meant something different. Loneliness no longer terrified me, it became a chance to rediscover who I was. In the days that followed, I started looking for work. I didn't have a college degree, no impressive experience, just a few years as a legal assistant. But I'd learned that sometimes, opportunity doesn't come from what you know, but from your willingness to try. I tried everything: waitressing, retail, anything that would bring some stability. Every day I gave myself a new goal. I learned to live alone. Learned to care for myself without anyone's help. I didn't need my mother. I didn't need Mark. I just needed to get back on my feet and walk my own path. A month later, I landed my first job at a coffee shop. It wasn't great, the pay was low, but it was enough to support myself. I started over with the smallest things, met new people, and began to feel like I could finally take control of my life. Even when I was exhausted, I reminded myself that nothing was impossible, as long as I was determined. Then one day, while I was working at the cafe, a customer walked in and sat by the window. He was a middle-aged man, well-dressed, looked like someone successful. He ordered a cup of coffee, glanced at the menu, then turned to me. "Have you been working here long?" he asked, his voice gentle but full of interest. "Just about a month," I replied, trying to stay calm, though I still felt a bit uneasy inside. "Have you ever thought about switching jobs?" he continued. I looked at him, unsure why he was asking that. But after a moment of thought, I realized I couldn't keep living in the past. Couldn't let bad memories control my life anymore. I wanted to change. I wanted to seek new opportunities. "Actually, I've been thinking about a new opportunity," I said, feeling like a new fire had been lit inside me. The man smiled and handed me a business card. "If you'd like to try something new, I work for a company that's looking for a project manager. This is my number. Call me if you want to know more." I took the card, feeling like I had just found a spark of light in the darkness. I didn't know what would come next, but at least I knew I could take control of my future. No more weak words from my mother, no more relationships that had hurt me. I had one chance, and I wasn't going to waste it. After that day, I called the man and asked about the job he mentioned. The interview was quick, and just a week later I got a job offer. The work wasn't easy, but I felt like I was finally on the right path. I started learning about project management, working with teams, and slowly realized I was capable of things I never dared to dream before. I remembered those days when I used to think I wasn't strong enough, not good enough, but now, each day I felt more confident. I no longer lived in my mother's shadow, or in the shadow of the past. I was Amelia, and I had the right to decide my own life. The first few weeks in Chicago weren't easy at all. Even though I'd decided to start over, the feeling of being lost didn't leave me. The tiny room I rented in an old neighborhood wasn't what I had pictured when I thought of this city. Everything was unfamiliar, and I felt like I was walking a foggy path, with no clear destination. But I knew I couldn't go back. I had made my choice. Chicago would be the place I rebuilt my life, no matter how hard it got. I found a new job at a small media company, starting as an assistant. Everything was new and full of challenges. I didn't have much experience in this field, but I worked hard, learning bit by bit. Every day I faced new challenges, and every day I realized I could overcome them. I was no longer the weak girl abandoned by her family and lover. I was Amelia, and I could do this. During those first months, I slowly got used to the job, the new co-workers, and the new rules. Even without any support from family, I felt like I was finding a clearer path. Maybe that's what I needed. A chance to stand on my own feet, without relying on anyone else. Then one day, while attending an event organized by the company, I met Patrick. He was a business partner of the company, someone I hadn't met before. At first I thought he was just a regular man, but once he started talking to me I felt something different. He wasn't like anyone I'd met before. He had a calmness, a way of thinking I'd never seen in anyone. Have you worked here long? Patrick asked as we stood watching a business strategy presentation. I've only been here a few months, I replied, feeling a little shy, since I didn't know him. So, what do you think about the company? He continued, his eyes lighting up like he genuinely cared. I think it's a great place to learn and grow, I answered, my words sounding a little stronger than usual. Strangely, I felt comfortable talking to him. You seem very determined, Patrick said, smiling. If you'd like, I can help connect you with people in the industry. Sometimes, the right help at the right time can change your entire career path. I was a little surprised by his offer, but didn't say much, just thanked him and smiled. Not long after, we continued talking about work, about changes in the industry, and I realized I had gotten caught up in the conversation without even noticing. He wasn't like anyone I'd met. He wasn't flashy, wasn't calculating, just a decent, intelligent, and sincere man. Gradually, Patrick became someone I turned to when I needed help at work. He never made me feel small. In fact, he encouraged me to grow. Not just in my career, but in life. Every time we talked about work, I felt more mature, more confident. He didn't just help my career, he helped me rediscover myself. Our conversations weren't just about work. We started sharing more about life struggles, dreams, and failures. He wasn't just a business partner, he became a friend, someone I felt I could trust. Honestly, I never thought anyone could understand me the way he did. One evening, while we were working late at the office, Patrick turned to me, his eyes full of care. Amelia, you don't have to do everything alone. Sometimes, sharing with others is a way to move forward, he said, his voice gentle but firm. I didn't answer right away. His words touched something inside me that I had been hiding for so long. I didn't want to rely on anyone. Didn't want to be hurt again. But I also realized that being independent didn't always mean being completely alone. Thank you, Patrick, I said, trying not to let my voice shake. But I still need to prove I can do this. He smiled, his gaze warm, as if he understood every thought in my mind. You've already done it, you don't need to prove anything else, you just need to believe in yourself, Patrick said, then turned back to his work. Day by day I started to see that I had changed. I was no longer the weak girl I once was. I had found confidence. In my work, in life, and in myself. Patrick had helped me a lot. Not just in my job but in helping me overcome the pain of the past. Life in Chicago no longer felt lonely. Slowly, I felt like I had found my place here, and no one could take that away from me. Patrick became an important part of my life, and I knew I couldn't imagine living without him. Our relationship grew deeper. Every moment we spent together, I felt like we were building a solid future, not just work, but love, shared moments, and peace amid the chaos of life. One evening, after a stressful week at work, Patrick took me out to dinner. We went to a small restaurant near downtown, the kind that served my favorite dishes. He hadn't said anything about us, yet. But I could feel the change in his eyes, the care he showed me. As we sat across from each other, he looked at me and said, Amelia, I think we've come a long way, and I just want to say, I feel very lucky to have you in my life. Those words made my heart beat faster. I didn't know how to respond. I just knew I felt the same. My new life in Chicago, which had started with pain and hardship, had now become one full of hope and opportunity. And Patrick, who had helped me find myself again, was someone I would always trust and cherish. My life had changed continuously since I decided to start over in Chicago. After working with Patrick for several months, we decided to launch a sustainable investment company together. A company we believed would not only generate profit, but also bring positive impact to the community. Our company didn't just focus on numbers, but also on environmental protection and long-term sustainability. When we started, I was just a woman with passion and ambition, but no experience in building a company. Patrick helped me a lot in the early stages. He had strategic vision, the ability to analyze markets and negotiate with investors. I handled market research, project development, and partner outreach. We complemented each other perfectly. The first few months were tough. Our company only had a few employees and everything started from scratch, but I learned something important. Patience and determination are the keys to success. Every day I gave it my all. Whether it was long nights, tense meetings, or tough negotiations with demanding clients, I never gave up. I remembered how I used to be weak, afraid, but now, I was different. I was Amelia, and I was ready to face the challenges. Gradually, our company began to achieve significant milestones. We attracted major investors, signed important contracts, and slowly built a name in the industry. The hard early days were behind us, and I could feel the change within myself. I wasn't just financially independent, I was building a life to be proud of. Patrick was always by my side, not just as a business partner, but as a trusted friend. Our relationship grew deeper. He helped me not only at work, but was also someone I could share everything with. We spent time together, whether working or simply strolling through the city, talking about future plans. He was the first person who made me feel truly valued, not because of what I achieved, but simply because I was myself. One day, while we were sitting in the office, Patrick looked at me seriously. "Melly, you've come so far," he said. "You've become the kind of woman I've always believed in. I'm so proud of you." A warm feeling spread through me. Even though I had heard compliments from him before, this time it carried a much deeper meaning. Patrick wasn't just someone I worked with. He was someone who had witnessed my transformation, who had believed in me even when I didn't believe in myself. I didn't know where the future would take me, but one thing I knew for sure. I had a job I loved, a partner I could trust, and a life of freedom and independence. The struggles and hardships had made me stronger, and I was no longer afraid of what lay ahead. But there was something still lingering in my heart, something I couldn't quite let go of. It was the past. Even though I had built a new life in Chicago, the old wounds hadn't completely healed. My mother, Elizabeth, and Mark, the people who hurt and abandoned me, were still present in my mind. I always felt like something was missing, like I hadn't truly escaped the past. Then one day, I received a letter. It was from my mother. I saw her name on the envelope, and an indescribable feeling rose within me. I hadn't heard from my family in a long time. My mother hadn't contacted me since I left, and I hadn't tried to reach out either. This letter felt like an invitation, but I wasn't sure if I was ready to face it. "Amelia, my daughter. We've gone years without seeing each other. I'm sorry for the pain I caused you. I know you've built a new life and I don't want to interfere. But, I hope you can forgive me and we can start over. I miss you very much." The words in that letter felt like a call home, a pull toward the past I had tried so hard to leave behind. I didn't know what to do, but I knew I couldn't keep running forever. I had built a new life. But could I truly move forward if I never faced the past? I decided to meet my mother. Not because I wanted to go back, but because I needed to face it. I couldn't live in fear anymore, torn between moving on and looking back. Patrick supported me fully. He understood that facing the past was something I needed to truly grow. When I met my mother, we sat across from each other in a small cafe. She looked older, but her eyes were just the same, filled with love and regret. "Amelia, I'm so sorry," she began, her voice trembling. "I was wrong and I can't change the past. But, I'm sorry for not standing by you. You were so strong and independent. I didn't understand you." Her words made me choke up. I didn't know what to say. I just sat there, listening, feeling everything she was trying to express. For the first time in years, I felt the truth in her apology. But I couldn't let the past hold me back anymore. Whether she apologized or not, I had a new life now. And I wasn't going back. I sighed, then smiled. "Mom, I forgave you a long time ago. But I've taken a different path and I can't return. I've built a life I'm proud of, and I want to keep moving forward." She looked at me, eyes full of regret, but said nothing more. I stood up, feeling lighter than I had in years. It was time for me to keep moving, not just for myself, but for everything I had built. As I stepped out of the cafe, I felt like I had finally closed a chapter of my past, and I knew, even though some things can never be changed, I would keep moving forward. With the people who truly believed in and loved me. And with a future I had built, with my own hands. The one-year anniversary celebration of my company had been planned for a long time, but I didn't expect to feel so many mixed emotions leading up to today. It had been a long time since I last saw my mother, Elizabeth, and Mark. The simple reason was, I no longer needed them. I no longer needed to endure their judgment, their comparisons, or their insults. But today I invited them. Not for revenge, but to show them that I was no longer the weak girl they once thought I was. But today I invited them. Not for revenge, but to show them that I was no longer the weak girl they once thought I was. Patrick had been by my side throughout this entire journey. We built our company on sustainable principles, and now, the company was thriving. We had achieved successes I could have never imagined back when I was still living in the shadow of my family. But as I made the decision to invite them to this party, I couldn't stop thinking about the betrayal I had endured in the past. My mother, Elizabeth, and Mark had no idea I had married Patrick, or that I was running a successful company. They would see me differently now, and I would not let them make me feel guilty or ashamed. As the day of the event approached, I spent a lot of time preparing. The anticipation grew stronger as I imagined the scene that would unfold that evening. I had chosen an upscale restaurant with a spacious venue, soft lighting, and gentle music, perfect for creating an elegant atmosphere to impress every guest. But I couldn't stop thinking about my mother and my family. They wouldn't know that I had built everything with my own hands, without their help. I once believed I needed them, but now, I was stronger, and standing on my own 2 feet. That night I wore an emerald green dress, simple yet elegant, with my hair neatly tied back and light makeup that still radiated confidence. Patrick stood beside me, always smiling and looking at me with pride. For him, this party wasn't just a celebration of success, it was a declaration that we had come a long way, from hard beginnings to becoming people we could be proud of. My mother, Elizabeth, and Mark arrived late. My mother wore a sleek black dress, but her eyes scanned me as if searching for something different. Elizabeth had a faint smile on her lips, but she couldn't hide the curiosity in her gaze. Mark was silent, his eyes filled with unease. As they walked in, a strange feeling stirred in my chest. Despite everything I had been through, seeing them again still felt like stepping into battle. I looked at my mother and Elizabeth, 2 people I once loved and trusted, and a wave of indescribable emotion rose within me. I was no longer the weak girl they believed would never make it. I was Amelia. A self-made woman who had built her success without leaning on anyone. Patrick looked at me as if silently asking if I was okay. I smiled at him, then walked toward my mother and family. "Mom, Elizabeth, Mark," I began, my voice calm but firm. "Hello. Thank you for coming." My mother looked at me with surprise, her eyes widening slightly, but she quickly regained her cold composure, as if she no longer recognized me. Elizabeth stood beside her, smiling faintly, though I could see the tension in her eyes. "Amelia, you look beautiful," my mother said, her voice trying to remain steady. "You've done better than I expected." I looked at her, unsure what to say. But instead of reacting the way I once would have, I simply smiled and said, "Thank you, Mom. It's been a part of my journey." Elizabeth stepped forward with a polite smile. "We're glad you've succeeded. You must have accomplished a lot these past few years." I sensed the subtle contempt in her tone, but I didn't let it shake me. "Yes, I've done quite a bit. Thank you for your concern," I replied, keeping my emotions in check. Mark stood quietly beside them, his eyes on me, but he said nothing. At that moment I realized he was no longer the man I loved, no longer someone I wanted to share a life with. He had left me to chase a different life. But that no longer mattered. I didn't need him, And I didn't need validation from him or anyone else in that family. The party continued, and slowly, the tension in the air began to ease. Patrick and I mingled with our guests, sharing our projects and plans for the future. Everyone seemed impressed by our company, and I could feel the difference in how they saw me, completely different from how my family had once viewed me. My mother and Elizabeth couldn't hide their shock at seeing me no longer dependent on them. They tried to appear composed, but I could sense the confusion in their eyes. Then, the moment came. As I introduced Patrick to everyone, my mother and Elizabeth couldn't hide their reaction. "This is Patrick, my husband," I said, locking eyes with my mother and Elizabeth, without a hint of hesitation. All three of them fell silent. My mother stared at me in shock, speechless. Elizabeth's mouth dropped open before she quickly tried to act normal. Mark just stood there, his face tense with discomfort. I didn't need to say anything more. I had seen all I needed to. The people I once loved and trusted were no longer capable of hurting me. I had everything I needed: Patrick, my company, and most importantly, myself. The party ended, and I didn't feel an ounce of loss. As my mother and Elizabeth left, I stood still, feeling free and at peace. I no longer had anything to prove. All I needed to do was live true to myself, without needing anyone's approval or recognition. Patrick stood beside me, looking at me with pride. "You did amazing, Amelia," he said, gently patting my hand. "We made it." I smiled, feeling like everything had finally fallen into place. Yes, we did. As the night drew to a close, the atmosphere in the room had shifted. The laughter and compliments from guests faded into the background. My mother, Elizabeth, and Mark sat in the corner of the room, their eyes occasionally drifting toward me, but none of them dared to look me in the eye. I knew they were trying to hide their shock, the confusion they could no longer conceal. My mother had always been a strong-willed woman, always believing she was right, but today she was no longer as confident as before. When I introduced Patrick as my husband, I could feel her gaze. Like she was silently admitting that I was no longer the daughter she thought would always be weak and dependent on her. Elizabeth, the sister I once dreamed of being close to, stood there silently, just watching me, unsure of what to say. And Mark, the man I once loved, the man I gave my whole heart to, was now working under me, in the company I had built with my own hands. When I saw Mark, I couldn't help but think of the painful days, the harsh words he had said to me. He stood there, silent, tucked into a corner, not daring to face me. Even though he had walked away and found his own version of happiness, these people, my mother, Elizabeth, and Mark, still made me feel like I was facing a final exam. They thought I would always be the weak girl, but now I had shown them that I was stronger than they ever imagined. My mother, who had always protected Elizabeth and judged me as too soft, couldn't say a word. She just stood there, looking at me with eyes filled with both surprise and regret. Elizabeth, the sister my mother always favored, couldn't hide her discomfort. She didn't know how to react, seeing me in a position she never thought she'd witness from afar. Mark said nothing, just stood still, his eyes uneasy, unable to meet mine. Finally my mother spoke, her voice slightly choked but still trying to maintain composure. "Amelia, did you really do this? You built this entire company?" I turned to look at her, not with anger, just with quiet certainty. I gave her a soft smile, my eyes steady. "Yes, Mom, I did. I built this company myself, and I didn't need anyone's help." She lowered her eyes, as if my words left her unsure how to respond. My mother had always believed Elizabeth, with her stable career and assertiveness, was the one destined for success. As for me, she had always seen me as the fragile one who couldn't stand on her own. But now, all of that had changed. Elizabeth didn't say anything, but her eyes couldn't hide her shock. I could see the confusion in her gaze, like she couldn't accept that the one she once considered weak, had overcome everything and achieved this level of success. She looked at me cautiously, almost as if she feared I might do something to hurt her. As for Mark, he couldn't stop looking at me. I could feel the shame in his eyes. He stood there, lips pressed together, silent. I didn't know exactly what he was thinking, but I could guess. He didn't believe in me. He chose Elizabeth, thinking she was stronger than me. And now, he had to face the reality that I hadn't just survived. I had succeeded, beyond all of them. None of them said another word. My mother didn't ask anything else. Elizabeth just looked down at the table, and Mark stayed frozen, unable to face me. The heaviness in the air gave me an odd sense of relief. Everything had changed. I hadn't needed them to succeed. I had proven to them that I could walk my own path, without anyone's support. But their surprise and confusion left me with a strange feeling. I had never needed their approval. So why did I feel a sense of emptiness seeing that they couldn't accept this? Was I still searching for their acknowledgement? Had I not truly let go of the past? I looked at Patrick, and he gave me a soft smile, as if he knew exactly what I was feeling. He always understood me, always believed in me, and I trusted him too. He was the one who helped me rediscover myself, who built this company with me, and most importantly, the one who made me believe that I could succeed without needing validation from anyone but myself. "Are you okay?" Patrick asked, his eyes filled with concern. I smiled, feeling the warmth he always gave me. "I'm okay, we did it, Patrick." He nodded, eyes full of pride. "I've always believed in you, Amelia." That feeling, of freedom and confidence, I had never felt it so clearly. My mother, Elizabeth and Mark might be stunned and confused, but I didn't need their approval. I had everything I needed. A new life, a wonderful partner, and most importantly, I had found myself again. As the party neared its end, the atmosphere in the room began to shift. The laughter and compliments of the guests faded in my ears. My mother, Elizabeth and Mark sat in a corner, their eyes occasionally drifting toward me, but none of them dared to look directly at me. I knew they were trying to hide their surprise, the confusion they could no longer disguise. My mother had always been strong, always convinced she was right. But tonight she wasn't as sure of herself. When I introduced Patrick as my husband, I could feel her stare. It said I was no longer the dependent, fragile daughter she once believed I was. Elizabeth, the sister I once longed to love and share everything with, could only stand there in silence, watching me, unsure of what to say. And Mark, the man I once loved with all my heart, was now working beneath me in the company I had built from the ground up. Looking at Mark, I couldn't help but recall the painful days, the cruel words he once threw at me. He stood there without a word, quietly in the corner, avoiding eye contact. Even though he had left and found his own happiness, these people, my mother, Elizabeth and Mark, still made me feel like I was being tested. They thought I would always be the weak girl, but now, I had proven I was stronger than they ever imagined. My mother, the one who always wanted to protect Elizabeth, and who always saw me as too soft, now had nothing to say. She just stood there looking at me with eyes full of both surprise and regret. Elizabeth, the sister my mother had always valued more than me, couldn't hide her discomfort. She didn't know how to react as she watched me standing in a place she'd never imagined she'd be looking up to. Mark said nothing, just stood silently, his worried eyes avoiding mine. Finally my mother spoke, her voice a little choked, though she tried to maintain her composure. "Amelia, did you really do all this? You built this entire company?" I turned to look at her, not angry, just silently assured. I gave her a gentle smile, my gaze steady and calm. "Yes, Mom, I did it. I built this company myself and I didn't need help from anyone." She lowered her eyes slightly, as if unsure how to respond. My mother had always believed that Elizabeth, with her stable career and assertive nature, was the one capable of achieving great things. And me? She always thought I'd remain a fragile girl, unable to stand on my own. But now, all of that had changed. Elizabeth didn't say a word, but her eyes couldn't hide the shock. I could see the confusion clearly, the disbelief that I, the one she had once labeled as weak, had risen above it all to achieve this level of success? She looked at me with caution, almost as if she was afraid I might do something to hurt her. As for Mark, he couldn't stop looking at me. I could feel the shame in his eyes. He stood there, lips pressed tight, silent. I didn't know exactly what was running through his mind, but I could guess. He didn't believe in me. He chose Elizabeth, the one he thought was stronger than me, and now, he had to face the reality that I didn't just survive, I had succeeded, beyond all of them. None of them said another word. My mother asked no further questions. Elizabeth kept her eyes downcast. Mark remained frozen, unable to face me. That suffocating silence oddly brought me a sense of relief. Everything had changed. I hadn't needed them to succeed. I had shown them I could walk my own path without anyone's help. But the surprise and confusion in their eyes stirred something unfamiliar in me. I had never needed their approval, so why did I feel this emptiness seeing them struggle to accept it? Was I still searching for their recognition? Had I not truly let go of the past? I looked at Patrick, and he gave me a soft smile, as if he knew exactly what I was feeling. He always understood me, always believed in me, and I trusted him too. He was the one who helped me find myself again, who built this company with me, and most importantly, who helped me believe that I could succeed without anyone's approval but my own. "Are you okay?" Patrick asked, his eyes filled with concern. I smiled, feeling his warmth. "I'm okay, we did it, Patrick." He nodded, his eyes filled with pride. "I've always believed in you, Amelia." That feeling. Freedom. And confidence. I had never felt it more clearly. My mother, Elizabeth, and Mark might be confused and surprised, but I didn't need their recognition. I had everything I needed: a new life, a wonderful partner, and most importantly, I had found myself again. None of them said another word. My mother didn't ask anything else. Elizabeth just stared down at the table, and Mark remained silent, unable to face me. That stifling silence gave me a sense of release. Everything had changed. I hadn't needed them to succeed. I had proven that I could walk my own path without any help from my family. Yet the surprise and confusion in their eyes left me feeling something strange. I hadn't sought their approval, but why did I feel this emptiness when I saw that they couldn't accept it? Was I still looking for their acknowledgement? Had I not truly let go of the past? I looked at Patrick and he gave me a soft smile, as if he knew exactly what I was feeling. He always understood me, always believed in me, and I trusted him too. He was the one who helped me find myself again, who built this company with me, and most importantly, who made me believe that I could succeed without needing validation from anyone but myself. "Are you okay?" Patrick asked, his eyes full of concern. I smiled, feeling his warmth. "I'm okay, we did it, Patrick." He nodded, pride shining in his eyes. "I've always believed in you, Amelia." That feeling? Freedom and confidence, I had never felt it more clearly. My mother, Elizabeth, and Mark might be confused and surprised, but I didn't need their acknowledgement. I had everything I needed. A new life, a wonderful partner, and most importantly, I had found myself again. The party was over, and the room had quieted down. The guests had all gone home, but I remained, staring blankly into the darkness outside the window. Everything now felt like a dream. I couldn't believe I had truly made it through. My mother, Elizabeth, and Mark had all left in confusion and disbelief, and I didn't feel a single ounce of regret. But why did I still feel this emptiness inside? I wasn't seeking revenge. I didn't want to prove that I was right or that they were wrong for abandoning me. The only thing I ever wanted to prove was my own worth. All the hardship, the betrayal, from my mother, from Elizabeth, from Mark, had made me stronger, and I knew it was those very struggles that helped me grow. The only question that remained was, could I forgive them? I didn't know. I had tried to face the past, tried to understand why my mother made the choices she did, why Elizabeth was so greedy and blind to the hurt she caused. I had tried to understand why Mark betrayed me, even though we once had such a beautiful love. But all I found in that process was pity for myself and regret. They had hurt me, and I couldn't let them keep hurting me anymore. I'm not looking for revenge. I just want to live true to myself, I said to Patrick, as we sat together after the party. He sat beside me, reaching out to hold my hand, looking at me with that gentle gaze that always brought me peace. I know, Amelia. I understand. You've come such a long way. And what you did today wasn't to prove anything to anyone. It was for yourself. Patrick was right. I didn't need to prove anything to them, or anyone else. I had done what they never believed I could. I didn't need to rely on family or anyone to live my life. That was the freedom I had always been searching for. And now I realized that the wounds of the past were just a part of my journey, not something I had to carry forever. I didn't need to hold on to hatred. I didn't need to keep punishing myself. I just needed to live my truth. Patrick looked at me with loving eyes. He had always been the one who understood me best, who stood by me through the hardest times. He never pushed me to forgive, but he knew I had to find that answer for myself. "Do you want to talk to your mom?" Patrick asked, his voice gentle but full of care. "I know you've been thinking a lot about it." I shook my head, a lump rising in my throat. I already met with her, Patrick. And I understand now. No matter how much she changes, I'll never be the daughter she wanted. She always loved Elizabeth more. She always thought I wasn't strong enough to live my own life. But I can't change her. I can only change myself. Patrick said nothing. He just held my hand tighter, as if trying to give me even more strength. I knew that no matter what happened, he would always be by my side. And that gave me peace. The next day I decided I wouldn't dwell on the past anymore. I didn't need to live in the shadow of that betrayal. My company had grown, and I was proud of everything I had achieved. But more importantly, I had found myself. I was no longer the weak girl my family once believed I would always be. A month later, when I had started to feel more settled in my new life, I received an unexpected call from my mother. I didn't know how to face her, but this time, I didn't feel scared or anxious like before. I had changed, and I knew I could face anything now. "Amelia, I know we haven't had a good relationship," she began, her voice slightly choked. "I want you to know I'm deeply sorry for hurting you. Can you forgive me?" I stared at the phone, my heart pounding. My mother had never apologized so sincerely before. But I didn't need her apology to feel like I'd won. I had already won. Over myself. "Mom, I forgave you a long time ago," I replied, my voice calm but firm. "But I can't go back to the past. I've chosen my own path, and I'm proud of it." She was silent for a moment, then said, "I understand, Amelia. I just want you to know I've always loved you. I never wanted to hurt you." I smiled softly, though my heart stirred a little. "I know, Mom. But I need to live my own life, not the one you planned for me." After that call, I felt more relieved than ever. Not because I received an apology, but because I no longer needed my mother's approval. I had done what they believed I couldn't. I had found freedom and happiness. And that was the most important thing. My life now is no longer about betrayal, no longer about pain. It's a life I'm proud of, a life I built from the very first steps, no matter how difficult they were. I'm not seeking revenge, nor do I need to prove anything to anyone. I just need to live true to myself, and that is the greatest reward I could ever receive. This feeling of happiness, peace, and freedom. I know I've earned it. My mother, Elizabeth, and Mark might feel confused or regretful, but I no longer let them control my life. Now, I'm the one who decides my future. And I will never go back. My life is now so far from what I once imagined. The painful days, the sleepless nights filled with worry, the family conflicts, they're now just scars from the past. Looking back, I realize it was those very wounds that helped shape the woman I am today. And instead of clinging to pain or seeking revenge, I chose liberation. I can't deny that I was once deeply hurt. My mother's words, Elizabeth's contemptuous looks, and Mark's betrayal, they all made me feel small, like someone who couldn't stand on her own. But step by step, I learned that I didn't have to live in their shadow. I didn't need to prove my worth through their validation. I stood up, rebuilt my life, and slowly found my freedom. Perhaps those past wounds taught me the most important thing: independence and confidence. I don't need to beg for forgiveness or even recognition from my mother, Elizabeth, or Mark. I'm not looking for revenge. I don't need to make them hurt like I once did. I just need to live as my true self. And now, I know I've achieved that. It's been a year since Patrick and I started our sustainable investment company. The business has grown tremendously, with a passionate team, and I can't help but feel proud of what we've accomplished. Every day at the company brings me joy. It's no longer stress or exhaustion like it used to be. Patrick is always by my side, sharing important decisions, challenges, and the small joys we create together. One morning, as I sat at my desk, looking out the window at the warm sunlight pouring in, I felt a peace I had never known before. In the past, I lived in constant anxiety, longing for love and acceptance from my family. But now, I had everything I needed: a successful company, a trustworthy life partner, and most importantly, I had myself. "How are you feeling, Amelia?" Patrick asked, breaking my thoughts as he walked into the room with a cup of coffee. "You know," I said, smiling as I took the cup from him, "I've never felt this free and at peace before." Patrick sat beside me, his eyes warm and full of understanding. "You've come a long way. I'm really proud of you." I looked at him, and suddenly my heart filled with emotion. "Thank you, Patrick. You're the one who helped me see myself, not just in work but in life. I don't know where I'd be without you." He smiled gently and ran his hand through my hair with affection. "You're stronger than anyone I know, and I'm so glad to be part of your life." His words made me feel as if I had finally broken free from all the pain of the past. Step by step, I had overcome everything. Not to get revenge, but to live true to myself. That is true freedom. The people who betrayed me, who hurt me, they no longer held any meaning. They couldn't hurt me anymore. And then I realized, what I truly needed wasn't their forgiveness. It was peace in my own heart. The years of stress and anxiety were behind me, and now I was left with trust in myself. I didn't need to live up to anyone's expectations. Didn't need to please anyone. I am Amelia, and I am proud of who I am. That weekend, when we attended a major business event, I looked around and realized just how far I had come. My company wasn't just financially successful, it was creating real value for the community. We helped small businesses grow sustainably, created job opportunities, and improved the environment. That sense of pride and happiness made me see that I was no longer the girl seeking acceptance from her family. I was the one in control of her own life. When we returned from the event, Patrick looked at me and said, "Do you see this, Amelia? Everything we've done. It all matters. I always believed you could create something amazing." I nodded, my heart full of gratitude. Yes, we did it. And I realize now that all I ever needed was to live true to myself. Not revenge, not proving anything, just being who I am. And that's enough. Patrick held my hand, his eyes filled with love. "And I'll always be by your side, no matter what." The peace I felt in that moment was all I ever needed. My mother, Elizabeth, Mark, they may not understand, they may feel confused, but I no longer needed their approval. They are the past. And I am the present and the future of my own life. And I don't need to change to please anyone. I'm no longer looking for revenge. I don't need to make them regret anything. I just need to live true to who I am. From now on, my life will always be my own to decide, and I won't let anyone hold me back again. The freedom, the gratitude for all the pain I've endured, those are what I've found. And in the end, I know I already have everything I need. Amelia's story is a testament to the power of perseverance, self-worth, and the determination to rise above adversity. The wounds of the past were not a burden, but valuable lessons that helped her grow. Instead of seeking revenge, Amelia chose to live authentically, assert her worth, and build a fulfilling life through wise decisions. Her journey reminds us that when we learn to love and trust ourselves, we find true freedom and peace. Amelia's story surely stirred deep emotions and thoughts. How do you feel about her journey? Share your thoughts below this video, and don't forget to follow the channel so you won't miss more touching and meaningful stories about family life.